The Untold Stories of Sanibel Island After the Ferry is made possible in part by the Lee County Government County Commission, City of Sanibel City Council, City of Sanibel Historic Preservation Committee, Bailey's General Store, Sanibel Captiva Community Bank, Sanibel Captiva Kiwanis Club, and the Sanibel Captiva Chamber of Commerce.
Memories, recollections, facts, and figures make up the life stories we pass down from generation to generation. These oral and written histories about the people and places of our past shape how we live today. Together, let's relive some of the untold stories about Sanibel Island in the last half of the 20th century. Its special people and places and the characteristics that make this sanctuary island a unique place to live and work. We'll hear about controversies surrounding the building of a causeway, the birth of Sanibel as a city, the people that helped preserve its nature and history, and the many organizations and groups that make Sanibel so magical. Life on Sanibel in the 1950s was a bit primitive. Roads were rough and rugged. Homes weren't air-conditioned. The island even set a world record for the number of mosquitoes captured in one evening.
The ferry was the only way to come back and forth to the island, and they were small ferries. There were 4 of them at the end of the run. And of course it only ran during the daytime.
I remember the first time I came over on that ferry, it was magical. And we just went, the pace was so slow. And it was an invitation to this beautiful island that looked totally deserted.
The ferry was the joy of every island kid. If you got to go to Fort Myers, that in itself was a special day. And riding on the ferry was fun because you could watch the dolphin and, you know, just have a free time running around the boat.
For some, the ferry wasn't sufficient. They wanted to connect Sanibel and the mainland for automobile access.
Hugo Lindgren, who owned a considerable acreage on the east end of the island, wanted to sell lots. And he felt that there was no way to get enough people over here to buy his properties without an actual road access.
Certainly controversial. Most of us didn't want it. Even though we were in business, we didn't want it. We were pleased with the way we were living.
I opposed it. I was with the group that opposed it. We fought it to the Supreme Court. We lost. It's there.
In 1963, the Sanibel Causeway was completed at a cost of just under $3 million. For the first time, Sanibel residents and visitors had a land route on and off the beloved island.
Once they did complete the span closest to the island, we would ride our bikes out and we would go to the first Causeway Island, and they were absolutely littered with fossils. It was amazing to see these crystal shells.
As soon as the causeway opened, everything, increased dramatically each year. There were probably 300, 400 people on the island when the causeway was built. By 1970, there were close to 1,000, and then it just increased tremendously.
Before and after the causeway, the preservation of the island's native plants, beaches, and wildlife has been at the heart of Sanibel's culture. Symbolic was J.N. Ding Darling, a Pulitzer Prize-winning political cartoonist who arrived on Sanibel in the 1930s. His love and appreciation of the wildlife of Sanibel prompted him to push for the establishment of a national wildlife refuge. In 1945, President Harry Truman established the Sanibel National Wildlife Refuge.
When Ding Darling died in early 1962, people felt that the refuge, which was called the Sanibel National Refuge, should be named in his honor, since it was largely due to his efforts that it became a refuge at all. So they began what was a 5-year fight to actually have the refuge turned into federal hands and also named after Ding Darling. They wanted it as a memorial to Ding Darling, but the real big effort was also to keep it protected.
Preserving the natural state of the island and managing growth has remained a common theme for Sanibel. The period immediately following the renaming of the National Preserve and the building of the causeway represented a time of particularly acute change.
The county commissions in the 60s and 70s were basically all pro-development. They looked at their tax base and they wanted the tax base to grow.
The 70s started activity, business activity, more people opened businesses, and more people came to build winter homes.
When the developers were coming in to build condominium and high-rises, and I think some of the land that they now have on reserve could have been built on, but I think they heard a voice and noticed that there was something there that maybe this person didn't avow that he was going to do, and they stopped it.
The county was issuing permits right and left out here, and it was really becoming overwhelming. And people could just see the entire island being smothered if something wasn't done. They started to investigate home rule, the possibilities there.
In the early 70s, appalled by Lee County's proposals for massive development on their sanctuary island, a majority of Sanibel citizens decided the best way to combat development was to become a city.
In the early 1970s, the Island Reporter was put together by Don Whitehead, Fred Valton, and Porter Goss, and that was really, I think, the opening gun in terms of incorporation, because the paper was right here on the island, written by islanders.
I worked at the Island Reporter back in the 70s, and actually Porter Goss was somewhat of a silent partner there. There were, I believe, 5 partners that started the Island Reporter, and it was small, but it was the enlightened paper.
There was another big fight. Sanibel doesn't ever have little arguments. It's a big controversy. Everybody gets heated up. People said all of the Indians left here. I think maybe the Indians did, but the chiefs are still here. Incorporation brought all that out, another big brouhaha. But we really needed to incorporate because we had no influence on our destiny.
Went on for a year or more and was debated at meetings. It went to the state legislature, and they just squeaked through. We incorporated, the vote was in November in 1974.
They had some controversy on it, but basically the people that like Porter and my brother Francis and Charles and got together and made a city out of us.
After Sanibel was officially incorporated, a group of forward-thinking people was elected as Sanibel's first city council. They pooled their resources and got to work on establishing a comprehensive land use plan.
There was another election in December. 18 people ran, and they took the top 5 vote getters. Porter Goss was the top vote getter, so therefore he became mayor. He got something like 70% of the vote. And the other councilmen were Francis Bailey, Charles LaBeouf, Zelda or Z. Butler, and Vernon McKenzie.
One of the goals of the city charter was the establishment of a comprehensive land use plan, and we did that. We finalized that in 1976, and that was just a battle.
In 1974, the city of Sanibel incorporated, And before they established any land use plan, they decided that they would implement a moratorium on development and begin a study of the natural systems here on Sanibel. That study, which is the Sanibel Plan, became the comprehensive land use plan for the city. Through efforts of establishing the refuge and then following that the Conservation Foundation's land acquisition program, and following that the City of Sanibel's land acquisition program, the community's been able to preserve around 2/3 of Sanibel through this partnership.
Just as Sanibel attracted the civic-minded and the environmentally committed, it also attracted artists and their supporters.
Sanibel has always attracted artistic people. We've had novelists, we've had a lot of writers, a lot of artists. It seems to inspire creativity.
The arts in the community were quite slim for a while. They had black and white movies at the Island Inn every Sunday, which was fun because there wasn't a lot to do. However, as more people came to the island, they wanted a little bit more than black and white movies.
The old schoolhouse was vacated for some time, and the Hunters came along from New York. Her big claim to fame was she'd been in Tobacco Road for quite a while, but I know they were on radio too, and they were theatrical people. So they started a little theater, and it was a different kind of entertainment for us. It did well.
In the mid-70s, the city was just a brand new city then, and they decided that artists and writers needed to have a license. We felt that, this community should support the arts. So we got together, I think there were maybe 20 of us, and we went to the community center across the street in the parking lot, and we dug a trench, a heart-shaped trench, and that was our protest to the tax. There are many, many more artists now and there's some wonderful artists here. We have some world-class artists. You have a lot of Sunday painters too.
Since being established in 1979, the Barrier Island Group for the Arts, or Big Arts, has grown to become the heart of artistic endeavors on the island.
Big Arts in the beginning was a place for the artists to get together and actually have fun. And there was a lot of camaraderie. It was hard work.
The island is known for conservation and beautiful sunshine and beautiful beaches, and we have an awful lot of people who know us all around the world. But what people don't expect is that we also have a very thriving, vital arts community, and it's personified, from my way of thinking, with Big Arts. We have a 400-seat auditorium that's filled frequently. We have lots of sellouts. We have wonderful art exhibits. People really come together to celebrate life here.
Sanibel is known for and recognized for its flora and fauna. But another natural claim to fame has been synonymous with Sanibel for decades.
In the early days, people would come to Sanibel attracted by the large number of shells that can be found here. As a result of that, a very active shelling community developed on the island. The Shell Club was established along with shell shows. Because of all these efforts, a one-of-its-kind museum, the Bailey Matthews Shell Museum, was established here on the island. Bailey Matthews Shell Museum is a non-profit organization that has education as the main focus of its mission. What we try to do is to use mollusks as models to explain basic facts in biology, conservation science, ecology, and also to show the different ways shells have been used by humans throughout history.